you can get money from something towards that, it's a joy. See that? If your heart is set just in an ordinary level on getting something, any gift is given towards that thing, anything you could sell to put towards that is exciting. You go, man, I just sold my old bike. I got $40. I can put that towards, see that? And the kingdom of heaven, when the ultimate goal is this, all of this other thing is not a drag. It's like, yes, see that? That's the difference. Cannot understand the joy of unselfish giving. Another quick one, the prayers and cares for others are born out of fear out of themselves. There's this old thing about a lady that was in a prayer meeting. Every time she prayed, she always say, oh God, my life is so full of cobwebs. Oh God, I'm here again with the cobwebs. And one guy got sick of it. He said, oh God, kill the spider. You know, you listen to people in prayer that are lost, they basically pray for their own salvation. That's what they pray for. They're always thinking about themselves. It's like, oh God, here I am. I'm back because, you know, my needs. See that? They're not. They said to John Wesley, a great saint who launched the Methodist Church, died, he left 2 gold spoons in the Methodist Church. That's basically it. They said to him, one guy said, how is it with your soul? And he said, I forgot I had one. He wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about other people and how when people speak publicly, and I had a problem with this, being a nerd, you know, nerds don't talk to people. We talk to shoes. We're very good at shoes. Hello. We don't like looking at people. You lose it, you see. So for me to get saved and have to like talk to a person, actually talk to a person and look at them was totally scary. But I learned something. And let me show you this. Let me see if I can get this going this time. Say, for instance, that you have a large nose. I'm not picking on anybody who does have a large nose, but I'm just saying, say you did. Let's do this. I don't know what the fat's happening here. It's very interesting. It's changed resolution on me. Great. I can't see anything at all here. This is hilarious. Yeah, this will probably do. I don't know. I'll have a look. See if I can draw with it. Yeah, that's silly. Let's get a big fat thing. All right. Look at this. This is your nose. And you have a zit on it. Very large zit, okay? And then somebody comes to say hi to you with a nice nose. Now, when you got this big, you know, if you pop it, it'll kill people. You know, it's one of those kind of zip noses. Well, if you're looking at this person and thinking like, what do they think of my nose? Everything your conversation will focus around that nose. You see, when they look at you, they're looking at my nose. Oh, I should have cut my nose off before I went to witness today. If you keep thinking like, what do they think of my nose? Your whole world becomes your nose. Now, let's change the nose. It'll be your face, your hairstyle, your clothes, any one of a dozen things. As long as you think about the nose, you're not going to be able to minister to people because you become self-conscious. And another word for that is pride. Because now your life's center is you. Not anything else, not him, not the person you're talking to, but you. What do they think of me? See that? So here's a simple little thing I learned. If you, instead of asking that question, what does he think about my nose or whatever else, if you start thinking like this, what is God doing in that person's life? Then suddenly you lose the self-consciousness. True humility is not putting down yourself or putting up yourself. It is forgetting yourself. To lose yourself. And practically it means this. If you get swallowed up with God and swallowed up with what He's trying to do with the people you're talking to, you will lose that self-consciousness that so often stops people from doing some kind of effective public or personal ministry. And it's helped me massively. The only time I got ever threatened on this, because, I'm a nerd, okay? Nerds have hairstyles that go like this. I had a friend in high school. His name was Norman. He had beautiful hair. I mean, his hair he looked like a Greek god. His hair, I think he permed it or something. It was just beautiful hair. My hair, I'd jump in a swimming pool, it'd go boom, and I'd look like Thing or something. But Norman, he came out of a swimming pool. He was a great swimmer and diver and everything else. He'd shake his head and all the water drops would just peel off in a crown sort of shape. And then his hair would all be perfect. It's just embarrassing. He was one of my best friends and I hated him. There is justice in the universe, though. He got bald later and I've still got a bit. But I was thinking, one of the things, when you compare yourself with other people, see, that's really a dangerous thing because you're either going to get discouraged or arrogant. If you keep comparing yourself with other people, say you take your Christian life and go, well, I'm like, but look at this person. I mean, shoot, they're getting up at 3 a.m. to pray, and then they're going to bed at 2, and they only have 1 hour of sleep, but that's all right. They're sustained by divine, and me, I'm sort of passing out at 9, and I'm lucky if I even speak English till 11. And if you compare this way, after a while you just get discouraged. I think I'll go back and be a witch or something easy. And then the other problem is that if you find somebody who's, say your age or they're the same class or dorm, and they're like total loser, you can go, well, I may be a mess, but not half as bad as this person. Comparing yourself with somebody else is not wise. But if you compare yourself to the Lord, there's a neat thing that happens. He only reveals, remember, God speaks, you do it. He only reveals enough of himself for you to transform, and then he does the next thing. But he won't keep doing it. He won't continue the thing if you don't make the change. Which means that he will hold you at a level of responsibility until it's changed, and then he'll go and show you something else. Whereas somebody else you can't trust to tell you what level of responsibility you're in. One of the problems a good coach is looking at the raw material they have to work with and seeing what they believe that person's capable of when the person can't believe it. Then they can assign training routines and encouragement and then telling them off, no, not that way, do this thing. But the danger is a coach isn't omniscient. They may believe that somebody's capable of stuff that they can't possibly do. And then they get terribly discouraged if they can't do it. I see this in tennis and stuff. Some young, crackerjack kid, but later on, he hasn't got the temperament for it. So he thinks he's awesome until he gets to a stage where people play awesome and have awesome temperaments. And then he falls apart and gets all bitter and twisted and becomes a mass murderer or something. So you've got to watch. Coach has that problem. Jesus doesn't have that problem. He knows exactly what you're capable of. And therefore, the only safe person to reference your life to is him. Because he will not discourage you. But he will be fair, but he'll bring you up to stuff. He won't just say, hey, whatever's cool. He'll say, no, I want you to do this. And if you don't get it, he'll say it's stronger. He knows perfectly well what in his strength you're capable of. And he's the only reliable person to take as your pattern. Nothing else is. I'm not going to try and copy somebody else. As I said, you'll get arrogant or you'll get discouraged. And who wants to be arrogant or discouraged? Anyway, that's that. And then just a brief final look at, that's another one. This is how Finney finishes this. It's not extravagant to say the religion I've described appears to be a very large majority in the church. What do you think? If I said to you that threat and bribe or hope of reward and fear of punishment is the major way that a lot of people think Christianity is, do you think that's an extravagant claim? Let me put it like this. I have names for evangelists. I'll call one evangelist the Santa Claus evangelist and one the Frankenstein evangelist. These are the two. The Santa Claus evangelist will say something like this. How many of you want happiness and joy and peace in your Christmas stockings? Well, if you come to church next week, we have the greatest lineup you've ever seen. You know, we've got Amy Grant will be singing one of her last concerts. Billy Graham preaching one of his last messages. Kenneth Copeland will be taking up the collection. Benny Hinn will be praying for the sick. And we have the first converted alien from Area 51 will be right here at this church testifying next week. Now, if you bring a friend and 6 others, we also will be giving out a free New Living Bible and a gospel lollipop for every person. See that? Now, that sounds extravagant. It pays if you had a red suit and were fat and laughed a lot. But Santa Claus evangelism is right through the church. The reason why you come is because of these things. And then there's the other one. That's what I call Frankenstein evangelist. Now, it pays to be very thin and skinny, have burning laser eyes, dress in black and white, an absolute sort of costume, and look like a goth or a Gen X or on steroids. And you stand up and your opening statement was, some of you are going to die today. It's like... and none of you get up and leave this meeting. If you don't listen to what is being said today and you walk out of here, you could just die. And, you'll be crushed flat against the wall by a car that was out of control, driven by my chauffeur. You can die if you leave here today. So. One of my favorite stories is W.P. Nicholson, who's an Irish evangelist who sometimes slipped into that. And he'd preached too long one time, and there was a kid who'd come to the meeting, was near the back, and there was the last train back home. If he missed it, he couldn't get home, and so he kept looking at his watch and was getting closer and closer to the time he had to leave. And Nicholson had just told a terrifying story. He said, my grandmother was a good Scotch Presbyterian woman, but she didn't know Christ, and tonight my grandmother is burning in hell. And then he said... Right afterwards, now, God is going to speak to some of you, but none of you get up and leave. I want you to all sit here in your seats. And the kid looked at this, thing, and he realized, if I don't leave in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to miss my train. So he's quietly and unobtrusively as possible, he got up to, sneak out, and then Nicholson saw him. He just finished his story about the grandmother and his thing, and he said, you, sit down. And, and the kid's, he tried to ignore him and go on, and he said, young man, he said, sit down. The kid said, look, I got to go. He's being quiet as he can. Nicholson said, sit down or you'll be in hell. That's what he said. And the kid said, well, I got to go, but is there any message I can give your grandmother? The legal thing is either, see, it's not just fear, it's also bribe. That's what people don't recognize. If you walked into a church and I said, everybody's got toothbrush mustache, hallelujah or something, you go, there's something wrong with this church. But what if there's a church where everybody's Santa Claus? That also is legal. And neither of those are gospel. Not necessarily wrong. Some saved by fear, the Bible says. Hating even the garment spotted by flesh. But it is not the gospel. Okay? Any questions? Summary. No, we'll just take a break. Again, take another break. That this first kind of soil, as I said, is probably the most basic difference between the gospel and something that may be good but not the gospel. Is there anything wrong with the law, by the way? Is there any problem with the law? Is the law a bad thing? No. Are there any weaknesses in the law? Think about it. Is there anything the law cannot do that the gospel can? The law has no power to change your heart. You put a guy in prison, doesn't mean he's going to come out a model citizen. He may just figure out how not to go to prison next time. The law has no power to change your heart. We put it like this. The law cannot pardon you only if you haven't broken it. Once you break it, it can only sentence you. It has no power to pardon you. And it has no power to keep you. Those are all relational things. They don't belong properly to the description of reality. You could put it like this. The law cannot justify. It cannot sanctify. So teaching people the law will not make them holy. It will just describe for them what holiness looks like. Preaching the law will not save a person. It will just convict them so they know why they are not saved. And we don't preach the law today. Postmodern culture, we need to preach the law. But it doesn't need to be preached legally. And if you use that that thing about God's laws are descriptions of reality, you'll find it is quite possible to preach the law in a non-legal way. When people realize this is the way things are, that's the way God made them, it's not that arbitrary thing, somebody coming along just making up rules for you. Nobody likes that. If I said to you, fly around the room, it's an arbitrary law. Quick, get up, fly. And if you don't, I'll kill you. That's called arbitrary law. It's not rooted in reality. And for somebody to put a penalty on it would be the height of arrogance. Most of our laws today in our culture are arbitrary laws. They are made on the whims of governments and whims of power people, and they're not rooted in the reality of things. Here is the law. Say, for instance, I designed a car, or somebody designed a car, because I probably couldn't do it, a car that would go 300 miles an hour. And here's the cool thing about this car. You couldn't flip it accidentally. It was designed so even if you turn at high speed, it would not flip, even at 300 miles an hour. It would just hang in there. Okay? And I gave you this car, showed you how to drive. Simple. It didn't require, a couple of PhDs to drive it. I'm going to ask you a question. I gave you this huge salt flat, hard, and far as you can see. How fast would you try to drive that car? How many would go for the full 3 ton? Would you try it? You start off like 30. Oh yeah, it's okay. Then you get to 100 and you go, boy, this is kind of scary. But if you really knew it would not flip, how fast would you drive it? Most of you would just, let me take it to the limit, see what it can actually do. Okay, and that's so much fun. I make another one. Because you got a friend. They would like to drive too, but then you're driving it, so if you see that. Now there's 2 people with cars that can drive 300 miles an hour. Now we have to have some rules. The rules are based on the reality of what is. The first rule is, don't drive towards each other. Second rule is, you can go as fast as you like, but don't stay anywhere near this person when you do it. Why is that? Because the nature of what you have now, with more than one person, requires those rules to be put in place. That's rules rooted in the reality of the situation. Now you have 3 million people and cars that can only go 100 miles an hour. You've got to have more rules, so a lot of rules. Red lights, stop signs, freeways, one-way signs on freeways. Those signs come out of the reality of the thing. But if somebody came and made an arbitrary rule, at the stop sign, fly, that's a stupid rule. And a lot of the rules we're starting to make now are stupid because we don't know enough. Why Jesus? Why him? I told you, I had a kid once in a college, he said, why Jesus? I said, what are you saying? He says, why do people have to follow Jesus? Why can't it be somebody else? And I'm always interested in alternatives. And I said, well, who else? Give me an example. Who else did people follow and worship? He said, being modest and humble and unassuming. Well, why don't they worship me? Why don't they follow me and worship me and put me first in their lives? I said, that's easy. You're not smart enough and you're not good enough. Sit down. The reason why we love Jesus is because who he is. When I married my wife, it's gorgeous, and she's getting more gorgeous all the time. When I married her, I didn't stand beside her in front of this church with all our friends and enemies there and say, I accept this woman as my personal dishwasher. I married her, not her skills. See that? Skills and all that, that's cool, it's all part of the thing. But I married her. I didn't marry what she did. I married her. I'm not so much interested in the works as the person. That's why Christianity, one of the major symbols of it, is marriage. A real marriage is where two people see the intrinsic value of each other's lives and commit themselves to that. And the old format is used to say, in sickness or in health, for better, or for richer or for poorer, for better or worse. I pledge my covenant, my life to this person. Not for what they can do for me, but for who they are. That's what Christianity is. It is a love relationship with a real person who is the most lovely being in all of the universe. And when you see who he is, everything else becomes dumb in comparison. The illustration that is used in the Bible is the parable, and I'm going to quit with this one now. If you look in Matthew 13, here are smaller parables. See, we've got this whole front part of this is the parable of the soils. Go forwards a little bit and see in verse 44. This is a single verse parable. The whole parable is in a single verse. Matthew 13:44. Somebody want to read it out in a nice, loud, clear, stentorian voice without shame or worrying about self-acceptance? Who's got it? Okay, here we come back now to our famous illustration. Since I've tamed my painting program and now it's behaving correctly. Here is, I don't want a felt marker though, that's a dumb thing to use. And let's use a thick and thin pencil. This might be good. Here is, ooh, that's really thick. Here is a man, and he comes along. He's taking a shortcut through a recently demolished building. It's a very old building, and there's big signs, stay up. But he takes a shortcut through this on his way home. He's going to just basically walk home. As he goes through this field, he sees something sticking out of the field. It sort of looks like an old box or something. It's like just sticking there into the ground. And the reason he finds it is he trips over the end of it accidentally. It almost breaks his foot. He is freaked, but what happens is he's hopping around and yelling and screaming, but he breaks the end off it with his foot. And he looks and it's kind of a box. He thinks, what's in that box? So he puts his hand in the box. You've got to be very careful when you put your hands in old boxes. You don't know what that is. Is it a coffin? What is in there? But he puts his hand in the box, and it seems to go a long way down. It's not like just a little box. It's a long, long box. But there doesn't seem to be any bones or anything in there. Puts his hand in, and he feels something hard. And he tugs on it. It seems like he tugs hard, and he pulls out this heavy, yellow, metal-looking thing. It's quite thick. It's very heavy. And he looks. It's got like a face on one side and stuff. Thinks, I wonder what this is. And as he's cutting through this deal on his way home, he goes past an old coin shop, and he thinks, I wonder if this is some kind of old coin or something. He goes in and he says to the man, he puts this down the counter, he says, excuse me, is this worth anything? And the guy looks at it and he goes, excuse me, and he goes out the back. And then he comes back and he goes, where did you where did you find this? And he goes, oh, I just came across it. He says, I'll give you $50 for it. That guy goes, well, no, I think I'll keep. Well, I'll make that 150. No, I think. Well, how about 500? 15,000. That's my last offer. He goes, what is this? He goes, it's a rare old Roman coin. Only a few people have ever seen one of these. He says, how much is it worth? Well, about $50,000. So he runs back to the box. Yeah? Puts his hand in, he tries to dig, but the box goes way down. He puts his hand right. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there, but all. Then he pulls something out smooth, this one. It's a big red thing about this big. It's glassy and it's red, and he sticks it up his shirt. Then he goes back to the street again. He's wondering, he goes past the jeweler shop, and he goes, oh, there goes. Sticks this on the counter. Excuse me. What is this? And the guy looks at it. Then he goes out in the back. You hear him, FBI, have there been any major jewel robberies? He says, where did you get it? I have it. And he says, how much is it worth? And the guy goes, I don't know. Ballpark figure. I don't know. 8 million? 10 maybe? What is it? He says it's a ruby. It's the largest ruby I've ever seen. It's flawless. You don't know what this is? He goes, no. And then he runs back to the box, okay? Now there's a couple of guys standing around there looking at the field. They haven't seen the box yet. They're looking, tell you what we could do. We could buy this and put up a parking lot here, but we'd have to excavate. We'd have to dig at least a couple of stories down. And you know what this guy's doing? He is standing by the box. You know, he's sort of like standing in front of it, moving. Whenever they look around, he's like there, you know. He's hoping they don't see the box. He runs home. Forget the bus or anything. He runs home. He bursts into the room. He says to his wife, sell the house, sell the car, sell the boat, sell the children. Oh, no, we can keep the children. Sell everything. And she goes, why? He goes, because we're going to buy a field. She looks at him like, are you crazy? See that? And then he said, no, let's sell this stuff. So every time he's laughing because he just sold his car. I got $30,000 for my car. Oh. See that? He never stands in meetings later and goes, you know, I used to have a nice home until I found the field. And I gave up my home for that field. I used to have a nice car. I loved that car, but I gave it all up for the field. You never hear stupid testimonies like that. When he actually does buy this field, he's got enough by selling everything he's got. The children are all in motels and stuff. He goes into the thing, he puts a big electric fence around it, and then he excavates. The box goes down 40 feet. It is jam-packed, loaded with all the treasures of the world. He can not only buy the field, he can buy the city, he can buy the state, he can buy most of the nation with what is in the box. Is he stupid that he sold all that he had and he bought the field? And when his old neighbors go, I don't understand, John, he had a good home. He had a nice car, but he sold it all to buy that parking lot field. You're not stupid. Why did he sell everything he had to buy the field? And the parable that follows is a man seeking goodly pearls, who when he has found one pearl of great price, he sells everything he's got to buy the pearl. What is the point? Intrinsic value obligates. The thing, value in itself, says to you, buy me, not anything else. This is the most important thing. Intrinsic value obligates. The thing itself, the intrinsic value of something. Well, it's really hard to intrinsic value obligates. Value. Lovely that I've got a little eraser here. I just take this little goodie out right here. Intrinsic value obligation. We could type, but who wants to do it when we can be all obligates? What do I mean by that? It is the value of the thing in itself that says, pick me, not something less. When you girls go to a store and you see two dresses, they look pretty much identical dresses, and you look at one, and you think, how much is this dress? If you look at it, it goes $1,500. You go, oh, shoot. But you pick up this dress, and you look through this gorgeous-looking dress, but you look, there's one beside it, it's exactly the same dress, and you think, $1,500, who would buy a dress like this? It's beautiful, but who can afford this kind of thing? And as you're leaving, you just happen to glance at the tag on the second dress, and it says $300. You look at it, and you compare this dress, they look identical to you, and so you grab this second dress, and you go up to the counter, and you go, excuse me, how much is this dress? And he goes, it'll be $300. I'd like to buy this dress. And then when you safely have got it, you go, that other dress, the one just like it on the rack, same price? They go, oh, no, that's $1,500. And you go, what is the difference between these two dresses? You don't know? That other one belonged to Princess Diana. This one was made as an exact duplicate for her, but it has a small manufacturing defect right in the corner. Did you see that thing? It was marked. See? Why did you buy the $300 dress rather than the $1,500 dress? If you were Diana, which one would you buy? See that? Because money doesn't mean anything to you. But the value of the thing in itself is what says to you, pick me, not this one. And our sense of value changes as we learn the truth about reality. I told you earlier, when I was a little kid growing up, I wanted a tricycle. That was my big thing. It was my rosebud. It was my tricycle. I wanted a tricycle. My father bought me a tricycle. I know he didn't want to buy me a tricycle. He wanted me to buy that bicycle that he went out for 30-mile rides on. But he bought me a tricycle. It also had fixed pedals. I learned that if I took my foot off the pedals, it would go very fast. I got on a hill that's grade was like this and took my foot off. I must have gone 50 miles an hour on that tricycle. I flew through two intersections, jumped. Somehow I stayed alive, And then after that, I got a bicycle, then I got different bicycles, then I got a car, and then you get a mortgage. But I don't ever wake up at night wondering what happened to my tricycle. I don't go, Rosebud. I don't even care what happened to that tricycle, see that? It was really important when I was a little kid. It's not that important now. And so you learn the truth about reality as life goes on. When you start, things are very important. Having the right house, right car, right clothes, right this, right that, see that? As time goes on, you realize those aren't the important things. Friendships are important. Relationships are important. Long-term commitments are important. And when the curtain closes down on all of our lives, as it will one day, one way or another, what you take with you is none of those things. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. All these things will be added to you. But the real long-term treasures do not exist in stuff that's transportable. They're in the coin of people's lives and the relationships you build with them. And that is why it would do you good not only to minister to children, but to minister to old people now and then and see what really counts when the crunch comes. Lunchtime.